This is Environmental Science 1, Chapter 4 on Kinds of Ecosystems. In this portion of the video lecture, we will be discussing the different forest biomes. And a biome essentially is an area with a very distinctive climate, and because of that distinctive climate, there are particular organisms that reside there. Plant life determines the structure of the biological communities. Plants have a range of tolerance of both precipitation and temperature. And so because trees and other plant life have ranges that they can tolerate, they live in particular areas of the world. And because those particular plants live in those areas of the world, the animal community will also be dependent on those plants, either for food or for, in the case of carnivore or omnivore predators, they will rely on those plants to attract their herbivore prey. So plant life is really the base structure of biomes. So in the tropical rainforest, the temperature and precipitation here, the temperatures are very warm consistently all year around. And the precipitation levels are very high throughout the year. Most tropical rainforests are found within a belt of about 15 degrees north and south of the equator. Tropical rainforests are known for their biodiversity, which means that there are a lot of different living organisms that reside in these biomes. And some of these organisms are found exclusively in the tropical rainforest and nowhere else. There's very little seasonal variation. Being that much close to the equator, there is a constant source of heat throughout the year with very few seasonal changes. The soil of the tropical rainforest is actually not that great. It's very low in many types of nutrients that some plants require. And the soil has a very thin organic layer. But the trees that live in the tropical rainforest have adapted to these soil conditions, and they actually thrive with low levels of nutrients and a very thin organic layer. So we're going to talk about different levels within the tropical rainforest. The understory, this is kind of the bottom of the rainforest. This would be considered like the forest floor. The understory is very dark. It's shaded mostly all day long due to the fact that there are several types of tall trees that grow in the rainforest, and they're blocking the light to the forest floor. Lots of Hollywood movies would like you to think that the tropical rainforest has a very lush and dense forest floor of a lot of, and you have to hack your way through vines and trees and shrubs. Really, most of the tropical rainforest, when you really get into them, it's just soil on the floor. There's not enough light for a lot of things to grow through photosynthesis. So the understory is fairly bare. The lower canopy, this is where you're getting up a little further. You would be in the lower canopy, mostly kind of at the tree trunk level of many different species of rainforest trees. You go up a little bit further, the shorter trees kind of fall into the upper canopy. There's a little less filtered light, so we're getting brighter as we go up. And finally, the very tallest trees make it to the emergent layer. So there we are emerging into the bright, full sunlight. So we can see here, kind of from the bottom all the way to the top, the understory is going to have less light, whereas the upper canopy and the emergent layer are going to have the majority of your sunshine. There are a lot of very unique organisms in the animal community that reside in the rainforests. Many of them are what we call specialists. Specialists have either a particular type of organism that they may have like a mutualistic relationship with. Specialists may rely on maybe only one or two different types of food sources. or specialists are living there because they can only tolerate very small ranges in a temperature difference. But specialists will exploit specific resources to avoid competition. That way, if specialists will, for example, only rely on maybe one or two prey items for food that maybe other animals don't eat, they can be then exploiting that resource themselves. Lots of different types of specialists use adaptations, which is why they kind of specialize in their lifestyle. Crypsis is a fancy word for camouflage. Lots of organisms in the tropical rainforest are camouflage, so their prey will not see them. Mimicry is another type. When you mimic somebody, you copy them. So mimicry is when one species will imitate another to fool predators. And usually the mimic is completely harmless, but will copy another animal that is harmless. And so they avoid predators because the predators think they are either the poisonous member of that animal family or an aggressive member. So they will mimic another or copy another animal, or in some cases plants as well. Aposematic coloration. These are very bright colors. Aposematic coloration for animals says, do not eat me, I will not taste good. So either very bright patterns or colors usually will denote that the prey is toxic. Threats to the tropical rainforest, of course, deforestation, cutting down of the rainforest, and because of that and the habitat loss, we can have animal and plant extinctions occurring as well. There are still native peoples that live in and around the tropical rainforests of the world. And when deforestation occurs, when they take their homes away, these native peoples are displaced. Temperate rainforests. These are kind of very wet sort of forests that are found way further north of the equator. So think of like the Pacific Northwest of the United States, places like Washington and Oregon. These are about 50 to 60 degrees north of the equator. And these temperate rainforests are very green. The Douglas fir is a very dominant tree in the temperate rainforests. You will get some seasonal changes in a temperate rainforest. So there are moderate temperatures. Usually most temperate rainforests are coastal. And so ocean winds pick up a lot of moisture, and that's why we can get this rainforest environment even being so far away from the equator. Deciduous forests. These are seasonal. They're found anywhere from 30 to 50 degrees north of the equator. The maple, oak, and birch tree tend to be the dominant trees of the deciduous forests. So these are deciduous trees because they drop their leaves in the autumn. So we do have some seasonal changes for our climate. The soil in a deciduous forest is very rich and it's very deep. And because of all of those nutrients and deep soils, that's why the maple, oak, and birch reside in our deciduous forests. A lot of shrubs and brush can be in the understory as well. There is more light that will reach the understory of a deciduous forest than a tropical rainforest. Some animal adaptations for those critters that are going to stay for the whole year. In some cases, animals will hibernate or have at least some sort of dormancy period in the winter. Usually in many deciduous forests, resources are at an all-time low for the season. And so some animals adapt with that by taking a little nap until the springtime and the resources start coming back. The taiga, or the boreal forest, think of kind of like northern Canada, 65 to 70 degrees north latitude. There's not a lot of vegetation. It's very rough terrain. Lots of pine trees and spruce trees dominate the landscape. Here we have some very long, extended, and very cold winters. And the reason why the taiga or boreal forest is mostly pine or conifer trees is because they can handle those long, cold winters. They don't drop their leaves in the fall like deciduous trees do. So a conifer means their seeds grow in a cone. The leaves of many pine and spruce trees are very thick, have a very thick waxy coating on the outside to retain the water so they don't evaporate and dry out. Animal adaptations for the taiga or boreal forests. There are many small mammals that will reside all year round. They will burrow underground and hibernate during winter months. Birds and some large mammals will kind of use the boreal forest as a stopping point on a migration route. So they will reside and hang out there during the short summers of the boreal forest, and then they will continue on their migration route. This has been Section 1, Chapter 4, Kinds of Ecosystems.